X wants a paternity test after abandoning us, says one of our twins isn't his. All right, let me start this off by saying this whole situation with my ex, Alex, is a complete mess, and it's honestly been one thing after another since we split. Like, I thought things were rough when he left me while I was pregnant with the twins, but that was just the beginning. Now he's come up with the most ridiculous demand yet. He wants a paternity test for our youngest, Lila. And the reason? Apparently she doesn't look like him, so now he's convinced I cheated on him and that she's not his. Let me back up a bit and explain. Alex and I were together for a few years, and things seemed fine until they weren't. When I got pregnant with the twins, Luke and Lila, he started pulling away. Like, emotionally distancing himself, barely helping with anything, and constantly finding reasons to stay late at work. I should have seen the signs, but I was too busy dealing with the pregnancy and trying to keep everything together. By the time I was about 6 months along, he dropped the bomb. He was leaving. Just like that, he was gone. He didn't even stick around to see the birth. I had to do everything on my own, which was hard enough. Luke came out looking like a mini version of Alex, no denying that. But Lila, she's got darker hair, curls, and her features are a little different. She looks more like my grandmother, who was mixed race and white passing. I didn't think much of it at first. Babies can look all sorts of ways. But apparently, Alex, and more importantly, his new wife Fiona, are making a big deal out of it. Fiona, man, I could write a whole book on her. She's the woman Alex left me for, and from the moment she came into the picture, she's been trying to shove her way into my kids' lives, acting like she's their mother or something. The kids don't like her, which makes sense because, let's be real, who would like the woman your dad left your mom for? Fiona's always trying to get them to call her mama, and they flat out refuse. I don't even have to say anything. The kids are old enough to see through the BS. So, fast forward to now. The twins are 5, and suddenly Alex is hitting me up, saying Lila isn't his. At first, I thought it was a joke. Like, dude, she's your daughter. You were there. Well, not physically there, but you get what I mean. We were still married when she was born, and your name's on the birth certificate. But now, all of a sudden, because Fiona doesn't think Lila looks like him or Luke, he's pushing for a paternity test. Yeah, this is totally Fiona's doing, no doubt. What really pisses me off is that Alex never had a problem paying child support before. He's always done it, though I know it's not out of the goodness of his heart. It's more because he didn't want to get in trouble with the courts. But lately, he's been trying to cut down on the amount, claiming he's struggling financially. Uh-huh, sure. Maybe if he didn't blow all his money on his latest hobby, whatever expensive nonsense he's into now, he wouldn't have that issue. Anyway, I found out about this whole paternity thing from his sister Maggie before Alex even bothered to tell me. Maggie's been my ally in all this. She's the only one from Alex's side who still talks to me. She let me know that Alex and Fiona have been going around telling people that they want a paternity test for Lila, and that he's planning to stop paying child support if it turns out she's not his. She also let slip that they've been having money problems again, which I kind of already suspected because he stopped taking the kids on his weekends. He's claiming it's because he has to work overtime, but I know it's more than that. I confronted Alex about it, and his excuse was laughable. Lila doesn't look like me or you, he said. Like, dude, genetics are wild. Not every kid is going to be your clone. I even brought up my grandmother, but he didn't care. His mind is made up that I must have cheated on him, and now he's paying for another man's child. I told him straight up that if he wants a paternity test, he's going to have to take me to court. I'm not going to let him bully me into anything. I know he's just trying to weasel out of paying for his own kid, and I'm not here for it. He tried pulling the I can't afford court card, acting like I'm holding his money hostage by forcing him to pay for a kid that isn't his. Yeah, right. But it gets worse. After I told him to take me to court, he started blasting me all over Facebook. I don't follow him, but Maggie sent me screenshots. He's out there telling anyone who will listen that I tricked him into signing the birth certificate and that I'm forcing him to pay for a child that isn't his. I swear the man is delusional. He wasn't even at the hospital when Lila was born, but because we were still married, his name went on the certificate automatically. Now he's acting like I forged it or something. And of course, his Facebook rants have attracted a whole bunch of his idiot friends who think they know everything. One of them even had the nerve to message me, telling me I should just get the paternity test to clear my name and make things easier for Alex. Yeah, because I'm the one making things difficult here. Unbelievable. I've started ignoring his calls altogether. If he wants to talk to me, it has to be through text or email so I can have everything documented. I don't trust him not to twist things. I've learned my lesson after dealing with his crap for years. Plus, I'm pretty sure this whole thing isn't even about Lila not being his. It's about money. It's always about money with him. Fiona's probably in his ear telling him to cut his losses and stop paying child support. At this point, I'm so tired of dealing with his nonsense. He left when I was pregnant, barely sees the kids, and now he's trying to rewrite history by claiming one of them isn't his. It's pathetic, really. But if he thinks I'm going to roll over and let him off the hook, he's got another thing coming. I'll fight him on this. Court or no court, I'm not about to let him or Fiona push me around. They can spread all the lies they want, but I know the truth. And deep down, so does Alex. So yeah, that's where we're at. I guess now I just wait for him to either back off or take me to court. Honestly, I'm kind of hoping for the latter. Let's see him try to explain this whole mess in front of a judge. Alright, so things took a turn after that whole paternity test situation with Alex. I thought maybe, just maybe, after the way I shut him down in the last conversation, he'd cool off and think things through. I mean, logically, if I didn't cheat on him, and I didn't, there's no point dragging this mess out, right? But of course, Alex doesn't think logically. He thinks like a victim, and when he's backed into a corner, he lashes out. This time, he didn't come to me directly. Oh no, he's way too much of a coward for that. Instead, he and Fiona went on a full-blown smear campaign against me. It started small, like little jabs on social media, subtle things only people close to us would understand. But then, it escalated fast. He wasn't content with just dragging me online. He had to start bringing family into it. One day I got a call from his dad, Phil. Now, I actually like Phil. He's always been fair with me, even after the divorce. He's great with the kids and has never let Alex's drama get in the way of his relationship with them. So, when he called me, I figured it was just a normal check-in. I wasn't expecting him to be all worked up, practically yelling about the ridiculous stuff Alex had been saying about me to the family. Apparently, Alex had been going around telling everyone that I was cheating on him for the last 2 years of our marriage. 2 years. And not just with some random guy either. He said I had an affair with my former coworker, Steve. First of all, Steve is married with kids, and we were literally just coworkers. We barely even talked outside of work. Second, Alex left me, so this whole cheating thing he's claiming is just insane. Phil knew it was all nonsense, but Alex had been spreading this crap to everyone, including Phil's side of the family. So now, I had to do damage control with the in-laws, who were suddenly thinking there might be more to Alex's story than I was letting on. It's funny how quickly people are willing to believe the worst about you when they're not the ones directly involved. Some of them reached out to me, acting all concerned but really just fishing for more dirt. You know the type, the ones who pretend they care but just want something to gossip about. And then there was Fiona. Oh boy, she's really loving this. She's jumping in, backing up every word Alex says, acting like she's been in the picture longer than 5 minutes. I get that she doesn't like me. Obviously, we were never going to be friends. But this was a whole new level of petty. She even went so far as to tell people that I was trying to trap Alex by getting pregnant with the twins. Like, what? I didn't plan for him to leave me while I was pregnant. I didn't want any of this. But in her twisted mind, I guess it makes sense to blame me for everything that went wrong. To make things worse, Alex started posting cryptic updates on Facebook, the kind where he doesn't name names, but everyone knows who he's talking about. Stuff like, some people are finally getting exposed for who they really are, and can't wait for the truth to come out. He'd reply to comments from his friends like, you'll see soon enough, with a bunch of winky face emojis. It was ridiculous, but I couldn't help but get pissed off every time someone sent me a screenshot. Then, out of nowhere, one of Alex's friends, who I barely know, messages me. He says something like, hey, you should really just get the paternity test. It'll shut everyone up. As if it's just that simple. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. It's not just about the test. It's about the principle. Alex can't just accuse me of cheating because his life isn't going the way he wants. I don't owe him a damn thing, and I sure as hell don't owe Fiona any peace of mind. But this is where things got even crazier. Alex didn't just stop at talking crap about me and pushing for a paternity test. Oh no, he decided to take it up a notch and involve Luke and Lila in this mess. He didn't come to pick them up for his scheduled weekend, which wasn't surprising because he'd been flaking a lot lately. But when I called to ask what was going on, he actually had the nerve to tell me, I'm not taking Lila until you prove she's mine. I was speechless for a second. He was really doing this? Punishing our daughter because of some stupid idea he got into his head? I told him straight up, you don't get to pick and choose which kids you take based on your mood. But he didn't care. He doubled down, saying he wouldn't take her until the test was done. I lost it. I told him, fine, if you don't want to be a dad to Lila, you don't get to be a dad to Luke either. I'm not playing these games with him. I refuse to let him mess with the kids' heads like that, making them think they're only worthy of love if they meet some arbitrary standard he's set. If he's going to be in their lives, he's going to be in both of their lives. But Alex didn't take it seriously. He laughed it off and hung up on me. After that, I called Phil again, explained what happened, and like I expected, he was furious with Alex. He said he'd talk to him, but I knew it wouldn't change much. Alex is stubborn, and once Fiona's got him convinced of something, there's no reasoning with him. The worst part? Luke started asking questions. He's only 5, but kids are smart. He could tell something was off when Alex didn't show up. He asked me why Daddy didn't want to see them, and I had to sit there and try to explain in the simplest way possible without making it sound like Alex was abandoning them. I told him that Daddy was busy, but we'd see him soon. But Luke didn't look convinced, and it broke my heart. I could already see the long-term damage this could do to the kids, and it made me hate Alex even more. All I ever wanted was for them to have a healthy relationship with their dad, and he's the one screwing it up because of his ego. Lila, thank God, is still too young to understand any of this, but I know the day will come when she asks why her dad acted the way he did. And what am I supposed to tell her? That her dad didn't want to see her because he thought she wasn't his? That's a conversation I never should have to have with my daughter. So now here we are. Alex is still holding this stupid paternity test over my head, and I'm just trying to keep things as normal as possible for the kids. It's exhausting. Every day feels like a new fight, and I'm just waiting for the next ridiculous stunt Alex and Fiona pull. But one thing's for sure, I'm not backing down. If he wants to take this to court, fine. But until then, he's not getting away with this crap. Update 1. Alright, so here's where things took a real turn. After Alex decided he wasn't going to see the kids until I agreed to a paternity test for Lila, I thought things couldn't get worse. I figured, okay, maybe he'll cool off, realize he's being a total idiot, and stop dragging the kids into this. But nah, Alex doesn't know how to just let things go. Instead of calming down, he went even further into crazy territory. Out of nowhere, I get a message from Maggie, Alex's sister. She's always been straight with me, and honestly, she's the only one from his family that's kept in contact after all this drama started. So Maggie texts me, saying that Alex and Fiona are planning to sue me for full custody of Luke. That's right, just Luke. Apparently they've decided that since Lila isn't his, they don't want anything to do with her. But Luke? Oh, he's definitely Alex's in their twisted logic, so they want him all to themselves. I swear, when I read that message, my brain just shut down for a second. I didn't even know what to think. How do you decide you're only going to fight for one of your kids? And how does that even make sense? But Alex is the king of terrible decisions, and I guess this one was no different. So I called Maggie right away to get the details. She tells me that Alex has been telling people that I'm mentally unstable, and that I can't handle raising both kids on my own. Now, if anyone's been keeping track here, Alex has barely been around since he left me when I was pregnant. I've been doing everything solo, and the kids are doing great. But now he's trying to paint this picture like I'm some unfit mom just because he wants to get Luke away from me. Maggie said she overheard Fiona talking about how they're going to make me look like I've been neglecting the kids and that it's in Luke's best interest to live with them. Fiona doesn't even know Luke. Let's be real. Every time the kids have come back from their weekends with Alex, they've told me how Fiona barely talks to them unless it's to boss them around. She's no mother figure, no matter how much she wants to play the part. After I got off the phone with Maggie, I just sat there for a minute, fuming. I knew Alex was petty, but this was next-level garbage. I could feel myself getting worked up, and all I could think about was how much damage this would do to Luke if they actually went through with it. How do you explain to a 5-year-old that his dad only wants him and not his sister? How do you keep him from feeling guilty, like it's somehow his fault? I decided to take matters into my own hands. I wasn't going to sit around and wait for Alex to throw the first punch in this custody fight. I started documenting everything. I had already been keeping records of our conversations, but now I made sure to include every little detail. I even kept notes on the days he skipped his weekends with the kids. If he was going to play dirty, I was going to be ready. But before I could even get too far into preparing for this custody nonsense, Alex pulled another move. He showed up at my house. I kid you not, he just knocked on my door like we were still on speaking terms or something. The second I saw him standing there, I knew something was up. He had that smug, I'm about to stir up trouble look on his face. What do you want? I asked, already annoyed before he even opened his mouth. He didn't waste any time getting to the point. I'm here to talk about Luke, he said. We need to figure out a new arrangement because clearly you can't handle both kids. I could feel the anger bubbling up inside me, but I tried to stay calm. What are you talking about, Alex? I've been handling everything just fine. You're the one who can't even stick to your weekends. He smirked like he was enjoying every second of this. I think it's best for Luke to come live with me and Fiona full time. He deserves a stable home and well, let's just say you're not exactly providing that. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You think taking Luke away from his sister is providing stability? Are you serious right now? Alex shrugged like it was no big deal. Lila isn't my kid, so why should I care? Luke needs his father, not to be stuck in your mess. I lost it. My mess? You walked out on us. You're the one who's been barely involved in their lives, and now you want to take Luke and pretend like you're father of the year? Get real, Alex. He crossed his arms, clearly enjoying how much he was getting under my skin. I've already talked to my lawyer. We're filing for custody. I'm not asking you. I'm telling you. At that point, I knew there was no reasoning with him. He had it in his head that he was going to win, that he could just swoop in and take Luke away from me without a second thought. I slammed the door in his face, which I'll admit, felt pretty satisfying. The next day, I contacted a lawyer of my own. I wasn't about to let Alex waltz in and take my son from me. We started going over the details of the case, and my lawyer reassured me that I had a solid case. Alex's lack of involvement, his refusal to take Lila, and his attempt to use custody as a way to hurt me were all going to work against him. And guess what? The cherry on top? Alex didn't even have the money to go through with his custody case. Maggie told me later that he'd been bluffing, trying to scare me into giving up Luke without an actual court battle. He hadn't even hired a lawyer. He just wanted to intimidate me. Typical Alex move. So after all that, nothing really came of his little custody stunt. But the damage was already done. Luke and Lila could sense the tension, and I hated that they were being dragged into this. It wasn't fair to them, and I knew it was only a matter of time before Alex tried something else to stir up more trouble. For now, though, I've got my guard up. I'm documenting everything, keeping records, and making sure I'm prepared for whatever Alex and Fiona try to pull next. I'm not backing down, and I'm not going to let them mess with my kids' lives any more than they already have. It's exhausting, but at this point, I don't have a choice. It's just another day dealing with Alex's crap, but I'm ready for whatever comes next. Update 2. So, after all the chaos with Alex trying to get custody of Luke and failing miserably, you'd think things would calm down, right? I mean, how many times can one guy screw up his own life? Turns out, the answer is as many times as it takes for him to feel like a victim. And this time, he went to a whole new level of ridiculous. It started when Luke came home from a weekend with Alex and Fiona, and I could tell something was off right away. Normally, Luke is pretty talkative when he gets back, telling me about everything he did. Usually, it's stuff like going to the park or playing video games. But this time, he was quiet, almost like he was nervous or scared. I tried to ask him how the weekend was, but he just shrugged and said, "It was okay." That's when I knew something was up. Later that evening, when I was putting him to bed, I asked again, "Luke, is something bothering you? You've been really quiet today." And finally, he opened up. He looked down at his blanket and mumbled, "Daddy said that Lila isn't my real sister." I swear I felt my heart drop. "What do you mean, Luke?" He glanced up at me with those big, innocent eyes and said, "He said that Lila doesn't belong in our family because she doesn't look like him." I could barely keep it together. Alex had actually told our 5-year-old son that his sister wasn't really his sister. The anger I felt in that moment was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. I had to take a deep breath because I didn't want to scare Luke, but inside I was ready to explode. "Luke," I said, trying to stay calm, "Lila is your sister. She's your twin. You both grew inside my belly at the same time. You'll always be family, no matter what anyone says." He nodded, but I could tell he was still confused. How could he not be? His own dad was planting doubts in his head, and it wasn't fair. It wasn't fair to Luke, and it definitely wasn't fair to Lila. After I got Luke settled down for the night, I sat on the couch, fuming. I knew I needed to confront Alex about this, but part of me was dreading it because I knew it was just going to be another fight. Still, I couldn't let him get away with filling our son's head with lies. I grabbed my phone and fired off a text to him. "We need to talk. What the hell did you tell Luke about Lila?" I didn't expect him to respond right away, but my phone buzzed almost immediately. Of course, he denied everything, saying, "I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't say anything like that." Classic Alex. Deny, deny, deny. I wasn't buying it, though. Luke had no reason to make something like that up. I told Alex as much, and all he could do was deflect, saying I was probably confusing Luke by treating Lila like his sister when everyone knows she's not. That was it for me. I called him, and when he picked up, I didn't even let him get a word in before I laid into him. "How dare you say something like that to our son? What kind of father tries to turn their kid against his own sister?" Alex tried to play it off, acting all casual like he wasn't doing something horribly manipulative. I was just telling him the truth. He's old enough to understand that Lila isn't really part of my family. I could barely contain my rage. "She's part of your family whether you like it or not. You're on her birth certificate. You've been paying child support for her since day one. Stop trying to mess with Luke's head just because you don't want to face reality." He started to argue back, but I cut him off. You're not taking Luke or Lila until you stop this. I'm done with you trying to poison them against each other. That shut him up for a second. But then he pulled his usual victim act. Oh, so now you're going to keep the kids from me? Nice. Real mature. I wasn't going to let him twist things around. No, I'm not keeping them from you. I'm protecting them from your nonsense. If you can't be a decent father to both of them, then you don't deserve to see either of them. He hung up on me after that, which was fine. I wasn't in the mood to listen to more of his excuses anyway, but I knew this wasn't over. Alex wasn't the type to just drop something, and I had a feeling he'd come back with something even worse. Sure enough, the next weekend rolled around, and Alex didn't show up to pick up the kids. I wasn't surprised, but it still hurt, especially for Luke. He had been excited to see his dad, even after what happened, because he's 5 and doesn't fully understand what's going on. But when I had to tell him that Daddy wasn't coming, the look on his face nearly broke me. He just stared at me for a second, then nodded like he was trying to act tough. It's okay, Mommy, he said, but I could see the disappointment in his eyes. That night, I sat down and wrote out everything that had happened. I knew I needed to have this all documented in case Alex tried to pull some legal stunt again. I wasn't going to let him get away with this, but I also needed to be smart about it. I couldn't just fly off the handle every time he did something awful, even though I really, really wanted to. The next week, Alex finally texted me, acting like nothing had happened. Can I pick up Luke this weekend? He wrote, not even mentioning Lila. I didn't even hesitate before replying. You pick up both of them or none of them. I'm not playing your games. Of course, that set him off, and he tried to argue that he wasn't ready to deal with Lila until the paternity test was done, but I stood my ground. You don't get to decide when you're ready to be a father. You either are or you're not. I could tell by his response that he wasn't happy with my ultimatum, but at this point, I didn't care. I wasn't going to let him keep pulling this crap. If he didn't want to step up and be a dad to both of his kids, then I was perfectly fine handling things on my own. I'd been doing it since day one anyway. So here we are. I haven't heard from Alex in a few days, which is actually kind of a relief. But I know this isn't the end of it. He'll be back with some new plan, some new excuse, but I'll be ready. I'm done letting him mess with my kids' lives, and I'm definitely not letting him get away with treating Lila like she doesn't belong. We're a family, all 3 of us, and nothing Alex says or does is going to change that. Update 3. All right, so here we are. After everything that's gone down, you'd think Alex would finally get the hint and just stop with his nonsense, right? But no, that's not how he works. Just when I thought he couldn't go any lower, he finds a way to surprise me. I should have known better by now. This time, though, he really crossed a line. It started with another text from Maggie. By now, she's my go-to for all the dirt on Alex, and honestly, she's probably the only person in his life who still has a shred of common sense. So when I got a message from her on a random Tuesday afternoon, I knew it wasn't going to be good. She told me Alex and Fiona were planning something big, something legal. Apparently, they were gearing up to file for full custody again, but this time they were going to claim I was unfit to raise the kids. Now, I know I've said this before, but seriously, Alex barely sees his kids. Fiona has no relationship with them other than trying to play pretend mom when it suits her. And now, they're going to try to take the kids away from me by claiming I'm the unfit one? I couldn't help but laugh at the irony, but at the same time, I was furious. This wasn't just some petty Facebook rant or a no-show on a weekend. They were going after my ability to take care of my kids. My kids. I wasted no time. I got in touch with my lawyer right away, explaining everything Maggie had told me. Luckily, I'd been keeping records of all Alex's ridiculous behavior, from the skipped weekends to the stuff he'd said about Lila not being his. My lawyer reassured me that I was in a solid position, but it still felt like a punch to the gut. No matter how strong my case was, the fact that I had to fight for my right to keep my kids just made me sick. The next couple of days were a blur of meetings with my lawyer, gathering more documentation, and trying to act like everything was normal for Luke and Lila. I didn't want them to feel the tension, even though it was eating me up inside. Every time I looked at them, I felt this overwhelming sense of protectiveness, like I needed to shield them from whatever storm Alex was about to bring. Then, it happened. Alex filed the paperwork for the custody case, claiming I was emotionally unstable and unable to provide a stable home environment. I read through the papers, and the lies were just piling on top of each other. He had the nerve to say that I'd been alienating the kids from him and that I was using them as pawns to hurt him. Yeah, because I'm the one who's been skipping weekends and refusing to take both kids. unreal. My lawyer was confident, but I wasn't feeling so sure. Courts can be unpredictable, and the thought of losing even partial custody of my kids was terrifying. I knew I had to stay strong, though, because if I showed even a crack, Alex would use it against me. A few weeks later, we had our first court date. Walking into that courtroom, I felt like I was about to throw up. Alex was there, of course, looking smug as ever, like he already won. Fiona was sitting next to him, all dressed up like she was going to some fancy event, not a custody hearing. The way they were acting, you'd think they were the perfect family, just trying to rescue poor Luke from his terrible mother. But then, something happened that I wasn't expecting. As we went through the process, Alex's lies started to unravel. My lawyer did an amazing job presenting all the evidence we had, showing how inconsistent Alex's involvement in the kids' lives had been. The texts, the emails, the missed weekends, it was all laid out in front of the judge. And as the hearing went on, I could see Alex's confidence fading. Fiona, too. She started fidgeting, like she knew they were losing. The turning point came when the judge asked Alex why he wasn't fighting for both Luke and Lila. That was the moment everything fell apart for him. He tried to give some half-baked answer about how he didn't believe Lila was his, and that it wasn't worth fighting for a child that might not be his. The judge didn't buy it. She asked if he had taken a paternity test, and when Alex admitted he hadn't, it was game over. The judge didn't hold back. She practically tore into him, telling him that being a father isn't something you pick and choose based on convenience. If he was going to fight for custody of one child, he should be fighting for both. His whole argument fell apart right there. You could see it in his face. He knew he was done. By the end of it, the judge ruled in my favor. Not only did Alex's attempt to get full custody fail, but the judge also ordered him to continue paying child support for both Luke and Lila. It was a huge relief, but I didn't feel like celebrating. This whole thing had been exhausting, and I knew it wasn't really over. Alex would probably come up with some new scheme eventually. That's just who he is. After the hearing, Alex and Fiona left the courtroom without saying a word to me, which was fine by me. I didn't want to talk to them anyway. I just wanted to get home and hug my kids, knowing that they were staying with me where they belonged. When I got back home, I sat down with Luke and Lila and just let out a big sigh of relief. I didn't tell them the details of what had happened. I didn't want to drag them into the mess any more than they already were. But I made sure they knew how much I loved them, how much I would always fight for them. So that's where things stand now. Alex is out of tricks for the moment, but I'm not naive enough to think he's done. He'll probably come up with some new angle in a few months, but I'm ready for him. I've learned the hard way that being a parent means always being prepared for the unexpected, especially when you're dealing with someone as toxic as Alex. But no matter what he throws at me next, I'm not backing down. These are my kids, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to keep them safe from his mess.